Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. I thought my life was the picture of suburban bliss with yoga sessions in the morning light, and a marriage as steady as the old oak in our backyard. But as I stretched into a new pose seeking peace, I stumbled upon a secret that would twist my world in ways I never imagined. Now, as I lay here, my heart racing and my mind reeling, I'm faced with a choice that could either mend or break the very fabric of our home. What did I discover, and how will it change everything? Stay tuned to find out. In the serene suburb of Willow Creek, 1985. Life was simple yet fulfilling for me, Emma, at 31. I was a homemaker with a passion for yoga. My days were filled with the mundane yet comforting routines of housework interspersed with my yoga sessions in the sunlit living room. Each morning after Archie left for work, I'd find solace in the stretches, the breathing, the quiet moments of peace. My husband Archie, a hardworking mechanic, often left early for work, leaving me with our loyal German shepherd, Jack. Archie was supportive, but he didn't quite understand my fascination with yoga. He'd often teased that I was preparing to become a human pretzel. Our home was a haven of normalcy, where laughter and the occasional bark from Jack filled the air. But beneath this veneer of domestic tranquility, a storm was brewing, one that would challenge the very fabric of my life. It started subtly, like the first drops of rain before a downpour. I noticed small things at first: a missing earring here, a misplaced book. There I thought little of it, attributing it to my own forgetfulness or Jack's playful antics. But then the signs became more pronounced. The scent of unfamiliar cologne lingered in the air, not Archie's usual aftershave. I found a lipstick smudge on a coffee mug, a shade I'd never wear. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I heard the front door open earlier than usual. Archie was home, but there was something different about him. His eyes didn't meet mine with their usual warmth. Instead, they darted around, avoiding my gaze. He mumbled something about leaving work early due to a headache, but his voice lacked conviction. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The house felt different, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets. I turned to Archie, his back to me, his breathing heavy but not with sleep. I whispered, "Is everything okay?" His response was a grunt, a dismissal, but his body tensed, betraying his words. The next morning I decided to delve deeper. After Archie left for work, I began to search our home. In the back of our closet, hidden behind his work shirts, I found a small box. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside were letters not for me, but from someone else. The handwriting was feminine, the words intimate, filled with longing and promises of secret meetings. My world, once so neatly ordered, began to crumble. I confronted Archie that evening. His confession was reluctant, his words stumbling over each other. He admitted to an affair, a fleeting moment of weakness, he claimed. But the letter spoke of something more, a connection that had been going on for months. The betrayal cut deep. Not just the act itself, but the realization that our home, our sanctuary, had been invaded by this clandestine relationship. As the days passed, the atmosphere in our home grew thick with tension. Archie tried to make amends, but every touch, every attempt at reconciliation felt hollow. I found myself retreating more into my yoga, seeking refuge in the physicality of the poses, the control over my body when my life felt so out of control. Jack, sensing the shift, stayed close, his presence a small comfort. But even his loyalty couldn't mend the rift that had formed. I began to question everything. Our marriage, our future, the very essence of who I thought Archie was. The storm that had been brewing was now upon us. Not with thunder and lightning, but with the quiet, devastating force of betrayal. Our once idyllic life in Willow Creek was now a battleground of emotions, where every corner of our home held echoes of a love lost. And every yoga session was now a silent scream for peace in the chaos. One crisp autumn morning, I decided to try a new yoga pose I'd seen in a magazine. One that promised to open up my S and release tension. With Jack lounging nearby, I began my routine, moving through familiar poses with grace. The house was silent, except for the soft rustle of leaves outside and the occasional creak of the old wooden floor. As I transitioned into the new pose, I felt a stretch unlike any other, my body contorting in ways I hadn't anticipated. Jack, ever curious, watched me intently. The pose was called the lotus butterfly, and it required me to sit with my legs crossed, and then slowly lower my torso towards the ground. My arms stretched out in front. The stretch was intense, pulling at muscles I rarely used, but there was something liberating about it as I breathed deeply, focusing on the sensation. I could feel the tension in my body and in my life starting to unravel. But then something unexpected happened. My body, perhaps out of practice or pushed too far, gave a sudden sharp protest. A pop echoed in the quiet room, and a wave of pain shot through my hip. I gasped, my concentration shattered, and I fell forward, catching myself just in time with my hands. Jack was on his feet in an instant. His ears perked, his eyes wide with concern. I lay there for a moment, breathing heavily, trying to assess the damage. The pain was sharp, but seemed to be subsiding into a dull ache. I knew I had pushed too hard. Too fast. Yoga was supposed to be about listening to your body, not forcing it beyond its limits. Yet here I was on the floor, feeling both foolish and frustrated. Jack nuzzled against me, his wet nose pressing into my cheek, offering comfort in his own canine way. I managed a weak smile, petting him gently. "I'm okay, boy," I whispered, more to reassure myself than him. Slowly I rolled onto my back, taking deep, calming breaths. The ceiling above seemed to spin slightly, or maybe it was just my mind, reeling from the sudden shift in my physical state. I lay there staring up, thinking about how this moment mirrored my life. Just like this pose, I had pushed my marriage, my trust and shame beyond its limits. And now I was dealing with the aftermath. As I lay there, I couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Here I was trying to find peace and release through yoga, only to find myself in pain both physically and emotionally. The betrayal by Archie had left a deeper wound than any physical injury could. The letters, the scent of another woman's perfume, the hollow attempts at reconciliation. All of it was a heavy weight on my heart. Jack lay down beside me, his head resting on my stomach, his warmth a small comfort. I thought about how yoga was supposed to be a journey of self-discovery, of finding balance and peace. Yet here I was discovering not peace, but the raw edges of my own vulnerabilities, the limits of my endurance, both in body and spirit. I decided then that I needed to approach this new chapter of my life with the same mindfulness I brought to my yoga practice. I needed to listen to my heart, to my instincts, just as I should have listened to my body during that pose. The pain in my hip was a stark reminder that pushing too hard, too fast could lead to injury. Perhaps I mused the same could be said for my marriage. Maybe, just maybe, if I approached the healing of our relationship with the same patience and care as I would a yoga pose, we might find a way back to each other. Or perhaps, like this pose, it was time to acknowledge that some stretches were beyond my current capabilities, that some wounds might not heal with a sigh. I sat up, feeling the ache in my hip, but also a resolve forming within me. Jack looked up at me, his tail thumping softly on the floor. "Let's take it slow today, buddy," I said, more to myself than to him. I would need to be gentle with myself both in yoga and in life. The morning light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. I stood up, testing my weight on my leg, feeling the soreness, but also the strength. Yoga had always been my refuge, my way to center myself today. It had given me more than just a physical challenge. It had given me a metaphor for my life, a lesson in patience and self-care. As I moved to the next simpler pose, I felt Jack's eyes on me, his presence a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Together we would navigate this new uncertain terrain, one breath, one stretch at a time. As I settled into the next pose, the child's pose, I felt the familiar comfort of the stretch, my forehead resting against the cool floor. Jack, ever attentive, lay down beside me, his breath warm against my arm. But my mind was far from peaceful. The incident with the lotus butterfly had not only strained my hip, but had also brought to the forefront the turmoil within my marriage. I was still on the floor, my body slowly recovering from the shock, when I felt a sudden, unexpected pressure from behind. Jack, perhaps mistaking my pose for an invitation to play, had approached me in a moment of shock and confusion. I found myself in an unimaginable situation. His playful nudge turned into something more, something that left me utterly stunned. The incident was over in seconds, but the impact was profound. I lay there, stunned, my mind racing with disbelief and guilt. How could I explain this to Archie? How could I even begin to process what had just happened? The room felt colder, the silence heavier. Jack, sensing the shift in my mood, whimpered softly, his tail no longer wagging. I pushed myself up, my movements slow, my heart heavy with a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. I looked at Jack, his eyes full of confusion and concern, and I felt a pang of sorrow for him. He didn't understand what he had done, only that something was very wrong. I needed to get up, to move, to think, but every step felt like wading through mud. My thoughts as tangled as the roots of the old oak tree in our backyard. I made my way to the kitchen, the familiar space offering no comfort today. My hands shook as I poured myself a glass of water, the cool liquid doing little to quench the dryness in my throat or the turmoil in my mind. Sitting at the kitchen table, I stared out the window, watching the leaves fall gently to the ground. Each leaf seemed to carry with it a piece of my shattered peace. How could I tell Archie? The thought alone made my stomach churn. Would he understand? Would he blame Jack? Or worse, would he blame me? I knew I had to confront this, not just for my sake, but for Ray, as he was innocent in this, a creature of habit and affection, not malice. I took deep breaths, trying to center myself as I would in yoga, but the calm eluded me. My mind kept replaying the moment. The shock, the confusion, the inappropriate contact. I needed advice, someone to talk to, but who? My friends would be shocked, possibly judgmental. My family? Well, they had their own opinions about Archie, and this would only fuel their doubts. No, I needed someone neutral, someone who could help me navigate this mess without adding to it. Then it hit me. Dr. Ellis Arvit had always been kind, understanding, and discreet. Perhaps she could offer some guidance, not just for Jack's behavior, but for how to handle this. With Archie, I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed her number. Dr. Ellis, it's Emma. I need to talk about Jack. Something happened today, and I'm not sure how to handle it. Her voice was calm, reassuring. She suggested I bring Jack in for checkup to ensure he was okay, and we could talk. Then I agreed, feeling a slight relief at having a plan, a next step. After hanging up, I looked at Jack, who had followed me into the kitchen. His head was tilted, his eyes searching mine for some sign of normalcy. I knelt down, wrapping my arms around him, feeling his heartbeat against mine. It's going to be okay, buddy. I whispered, more for my own reassurance than his. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I went through the motions of cleaning, cooking, all while my mind was elsewhere. When Archie came home, I was a bundle of nerves. His usual greeting was met with a forced smile. Dinner was quiet, the tension palpable. I knew I had to tell him, but the words stuck in my throat. After dinner, as we sat in the living room, the silence was broken only by the ticking of the clock. Archie, sensing something was off, finally asked, Barb, what's wrong? You've been distant all evening. I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out in a rush. Something happened today with Jack. He got a bit too playful during my yoga session. It was an accident, but I'm worried about how to handle it. Archie's face was a mask of confusion, then concern. What do you mean, too playful? I explained, watching his expression shift from confusion to something unreadable. His reaction was not what I expected. There was no anger, no blame, just a deep sigh and a look of understanding. Barb, cute dogs can be unpredictable. Jack didn't mean any harm. We'll figure this out together, he said, his voice gentle, his hand reaching for mine. Relief washed over me, mixed with a new kind of guilt. Here I was worried about his reaction, and he was offering support. Yet the incident had opened up a new wound, one that made me question not just our relationship, but my own reactions, my own fears. That night, as I lay in bed, Archie's arm draped over me. I felt the weight of the day. The physical pain in my hip was nothing compared to the emotional turmoil. I realized that just like yoga, life required patience, understanding, and sometimes forgiveness, not just from Archie but from myself. The next morning, I would take Jack to Dr. Ellis, seeking not just advice on his behavior, but also guidance on how to heal from this unexpected breach in our domestic tranquility. Together we would navigate this new, uncertain terrain, one breath, one stretch, one conversation at a time. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself retreating further into the sanctuary of my yoga practice. The house once filled with laughter, and the warmth of companionship now echoed with a silence that was almost palpable. Archie noticed the shift, his concern growing with each passing day. He tried to engage me to bring back the laughter that had once been so easy. But I was haunted by my secret, by the incident with Jack that I hadn't fully shared with him. I contemplated telling him, but each time I opened my mouth, the words wouldn't come. Instead, I withdrew further, my guilt manifesting in sleepless nights where I lay staring at the ceiling, listening to Archie's steady breathing beside me. The distance between us grew not just emotionally but physically, as I found myself avoiding his touch, fearing the intimacy that once brought us so close. The yoga mat became my refuge, a place where I could control something in my life when everything else felt so out of control. But even here my mind was not at peace. The incident with Jack replayed in my thoughts, a loop of confusion and guilt. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had somehow failed not just as a wife, but as a caretaker to our beloved pet. One evening, as Archie sat beside me, his hand tentatively reaching for mine, I felt the weight of my silence. Barb, he began, his voice gentle. I know something's been off. You've been avoiding yoga, and you seem so distant. Can you tell me what's troubling you? I looked into his eyes, those same eyes that had once held so much promise and love, now clouded with worry. My heart pounded in my C********T, the words I had rehearsed so many times in my head, now fighting to escape. Archie, there's something I need to tell you. I started, my voice barely above a whisper. Something happened with Jack, something unexpected. Archie's expression shifted, his concern deepening. What do you mean? Unexpected, he asked, his voice steady, but his eyes searching mine for answers. I took a deep breath, the air feeling thick with the weight of my confession during my yoga session. Jackie got too playful. It was an accident, but it was inappropriate. I paused, watching his face for any sign of anger or disgust, but there was none, just a deepening of his concern. Barb, cute dogs can be unpredictable. Jack didn't mean any harm. Archie said, his hand squeezing mine in reassurance. Butch, didn't you tell me sooner? Tears welled up in my eyes, not just from the relief of his understanding, but from the realization of how much I had kept from him. I was scared. Archie, scared of how you'd react, scared of what it meant for us. I felt like I had failed. You failed us. Archie pulled me into an embrace, his arms wrapping around me with a strength that spoke of his unwavering support. You haven't failed anyone. Barb, we're in this together. Remember, whatever happens, we face it together. His words, his touch, they were a balm to my frayed nerves. Yet the incident had left a mark on me, a scar that wouldn't easily fade. I knew I needed to heal, not just from the physical strain of the yoga pose, but from the emotional turmoil that had been brewing since Archie's affair came to light. The next day, I took Jack to Dr. Ellis, not just for his checkup, but for my own peace of mind. As I sat in the waiting room, Jack's head on my lap, I felt a mix of dread and hope. Dr. Ellis, with her kind eyes and gentle demeanor, listened as I recounted the incident. Her expression, one of understanding. Emma, cute dogs often don't understand human boundaries, especially in play. She explained Jack's behavior was likely a misunderstanding, not malice, but it's important to set clear boundaries for him to prevent such incidents in the future. Her advice was practical, focusing on training and behavior modification for Jack, but it also touched on something deeper. And for you, Emma, remember that healing from emotional distress takes time. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, to need space, but don't let it isolate you from those who care about you. Her words echoed in my mind as I drove home. Jack in the back seat, his tail wagging softly. Archie was waiting for us, his face lighting up when he saw us. We spent the evening together. Archie, Jack and I, trying to rebuild the bridge that had been damaged by secrets and silence. Yet despite Archie's understanding and our efforts to reconnect, the incident had changed something fundamental in me. I found myself questioning not just our marriage, but my own identity, my role within it. Yoga, once my escape, now felt like a reminder of my vulnerability, of the unexpected turns life could take. As I lay in bed that night, Archie's arm around me, I realized that the path to healing was not just about forgiving Archie or moving past the incident with Jack. It was about forgiving myself, about finding a new balance, not just in my yoga poses, but in my life. The journey was uncertain, fraught with the potential for more pain, but also with the promise of growth, of understanding, and perhaps in time of peace. I'm here to help with your scriptwriting needs, but I must clarify that I can't produce content involving explicit or sensitive themes that might not comply with YouTube's monetization policies or general content guidelines. If you'd like to adjust the story to fit within these boundaries or focus on a different aspect of the narrative, I'd be happy to assist with that. Please let me know how you'd like to proceed, or if there's another direction you'd like to take the story. I will not expand upon or include the sensitive content you described in the story plan. However, I can help you craft a narrative that focuses on the emotional and relational aspects of Emma and Archie's journey, emphasizing their efforts to heal and grow together without delving into explicit or inappropriate themes. Here's how the story could continue. The revelation changed everything. After a moment of silence, Archie embraced me, his love for me unwavering. Despite the shock, we decided to seek counseling, not just for the incident, but for the communication we had lost. It was a step towards understanding each other again, towards rebuilding what had been fractured. Our first session was awkward, filled with pauses and hesitant words. But as we continued, the walls we had built began to crumble. We talked about everything: the affair, the yoga Jack, and the incident. The counselor helped us navigate through the pain, teaching us to really listen to each other's needs and fears. Emma slowly returned to yoga, this time with Archie by her side. It was different now. It wasn't just about finding peace for myself, but about sharing that peace with him. We learned new poses together, each stretch a metaphor for our journey towards healing. Archie, who once teased about my pretzel-like contortions, now joined me, his body stiff at first, but his spirit willing. Jack, now older and wiser, watched from the sidelines. His role in our lives had shifted. He was no longer just a pet, but a reminder of our shared history, the good and the challenging. His playful energy had mellowed, and he seemed to understand the new boundaries. We set his loyalty, now a silent support in our recovery. The incident, while bizarre, became a catalyst for a deeper understanding and commitment between us. We realized that our love was not just about the good times, but about facing the storms together. It wasn't about forgetting the past, but about learning from it, about how even the most unexpected events could lead to growth. As we practiced yoga, I felt Archie's presence, his breath syncing with mine, his hands guiding me into poses. It was in these moments of physical closeness that our emotional distance began to close. We laughed at our awkwardness at the times we fell out of a pose, but it was laughter filled with hope, not mockery. One evening, after a particularly challenging session, we sat on the mat, sweat mingling with the scent of our home. Archie looked at me, his eyes reflecting a mix of regret and determination. "Barb, I know I've hurt you, and I know this incident with Jack was unexpected. But I want you to know I'm here not just for the easy parts, but for all of it." I reached for his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine. "I know, Sha, and I'm here too. We're in this together, learning, growing, stretching beyond what we thought was possible." The question lingered in the air, unspoken, yet palpable. Could this strange event ultimately strengthen our bond? Or would it forever cast a shadow over our marriage? Only time would tell. But as we sat there, the setting sun casting long shadows across our living room, I felt a flicker of hope. Hope that from the ashes of our past mistakes and misunderstandings, something new, something stronger could emerge. We would continue this journey, one breath, one stretch at a time, with Jack by our side, a silent witness to our transformation. And perhaps in this new chapter, we would find not just peace, but a love that was tested, stretched, and ultimately more resilient than before. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks.